Greetings. Welcome to ITR Live. I'm your host, Chris Hagenow, and we are back here at ITR World Headquarters in Central Iowa, and we're ready for another fun-filled, action-packed episode of the gold standard in Iowa conservative entertainment. We have a special treat for everyone today. We have Sarah Curry with us here, not in studio. We have Sarah with us virtually from one of ITR's satellite offices in the quest for world domination. Greetings, Sarah.
I'm glad to be here representing rural Iowa. Yep.
I can tell. So I got a whole new setup today to try and stream this, and it's going to look awkward. It's going to sound awkward. And we're just going to have to apologize in advance to all the listeners here. So anyway, I've got you on here today. I think we've got a lot to cover, but yet it's one of those episodes where I think we're just going to have to see where things go. You have done this. How many years have you been tracking bonding, local government bonding in the state of Iowa? Because that's what we're here to talk about today, because it's been several years now, right?
Since March of 2023, that's when I started doing it. And that's when bonds were held multiple times during the year.
Okay. So, yeah, that's right. So it has been several cycles. That's right. So what you are trying to do is track the bond referendum around the state of Iowa. I mean, is that the short way to put it?
Yeah. So
Okay.
bonds are local elections. And so the state doesn't really cover those because they're for cities and school districts and counties. And so the only way to get that information is to contact your local county auditor. And so when we have a governor's election or a constitutional amendment election, it kind of gets statewide media attention. But when we have these tiny bonds, people don't know about it. They don't know what's going on. So like the Des Moines bond is getting a lot of attention because Des Moines is a populous area and the Des Moines Register covers it and there's news stations there. But some of these smaller areas that have bonds, they're getting minimal coverage. And so I think it's very important just to get the word out. And the only way to do that is to, call these auditors and get the list. And no one else takes the time to do that.
So, yeah, so there's two. That's a problem. And I've been trying to, we have been trying to sound the alarm on that. But I mean, at a very basic level, why does this matter? Why do we care about all these bonds, or why should someone in their community care about it all? Let's just break it down.
Yeah, so debt is spending, right? And so if you're going to spend money, the money has to come from somewhere. And in Iowa, that comes from property taxpayers. And the other thing that's important is that these property taxes last for 20 years. The bonds are on the property taxpayer's bill for 20 years. And so it's not just a little thing that's going to go away. It's there for a long time. And really, it's a generational thing. I mean, think about it. If you hand your house down to your kids, they could still be paying on this bond, depending where you are in your life. So I just think it's important. Communities need to be engaged in it. We need to have significant voter turnout. Not saying that bonds are bad. There is a purpose for debt in government, and there's a purpose, for these projects. But I think the community needs to know what they're signing up for, and there needs to be a good discussion about it before we sign people up for 20 years of increased taxes.
Well said. So you touched on this at the outset, but it is sometimes difficult to know what bond elections are out there, what's being asked for. One of the things that frustrates me and is that you don't even have the local government doesn't even have to certify that they're putting this on the ballot until just a few weeks before the election. And so it's a real challenge because nobody else is reporting this data. You're the only one that's going out and trying to get it statewide. What you would think that there would be some magic website somewhere, if you're other elections, if you're voting for in the general election, you're going to have sample ballots in the mail and you're going to go to the Secretary of State's website. It's all going to be right there for you. But this is difficult. What do you have to do to be able to compile a list of every local bond election in the state of Iowa?
So local governments have to submit their resolutions for bonds 45 days before the election. That's the deadline they send them to the auditors. So after that deadline, I contact all 99 auditors and I have to ask them if they have public measures on their ballot, yes or no. So I email back and forth with all 99 auditors. And I do this routinely, actually. I do it in March and September and in November, because in March and September, you can have property tax increases on the ballot. So they're really tired of hearing from me. Um,
But can I jump in? I'm sorry, because I think you've told me in the past they're generally really helpful, right?
They are. And actually, I
Okay.
tell them, I hope one day the Secretary of State's office will cover this and I don't have to bother you with this anymore. And most of them respond, yes, I would hope so. Um,
Yeah.
Actually, because of the work that ITR's done, I'm going to take credit for it because no one else is really pushing this issue. Now, the Secretary of State's office does report bond and local government results in these odd years on their
Oh,
website. They
good.
used to only do it in even years. So I go to all 99 auditors. They have to email me the ballot language, and then I have to manually go through and read it and put it together and put it in a spreadsheet. And then what I used to have to do is I used to have to call all the auditors back after the election and ask them for the vote totals. And that sounds easy too, but it's not, because think about how many school districts cross over multiple county lines. A
Yeah.
lot of them. And so auditors are really only in control of the voters in their district or of their county.
Right.
So let's
Uh,
say there's a school district that spans 3 counties. I have to call all 3 auditors and ask them for the vote counts in all 3 of, these auditors' districts, and then I have to manually add it up so I can give our readers the results of the bond election. So the Secretary of State's office doing it on November 4th is going to make my job a lot easier because I can just go there and they compile everything because all the auditors send it to that one place. I would like for them to kind of advertise, hey, this is what's on the ballot, this is what's coming up, so people can know about it. But I think it's
it,
important, and that's why we keep doing it.
at a very basic level, it's just simply a transparency measure to let the general public know what's out there. I know we've gotten feedback from members of the media that are appreciative of this work, that they can go and have a one-stop look at this. I've heard from other people in industry that maybe have an interest in what bond decisions are out there. They're also very interested in the data, and but you are the only one doing it, and it's been great. Uh, so you've looked at this from several angles, but what are your big picture thoughts on the size and the number of bonds that are out there this year in the state of Iowa?
So the legislation back in 2023 moved all bond elections to November, which is very helpful from a reporting standpoint and then also from a voter engagement and understanding standpoint because we know when they're going to be. So this year there's going to be 53 bonds on the ballot statewide. 39 of those are from school districts. Every single year, school districts dominate the number of bonds that are offered. 10 of them are from cities, 2 are from counties, and 2 are from community colleges. Some of these bonds are repeaters, which means they failed in years past and they're bringing the same proposal back. Some are asking for more money, some are asking for less money, some are asking for the exact same amount. But overall, if we look at all the bonds on this ballot, it's $1.5 billion in new borrowing, which is a lot of money and a lot of property taxes. And so when we talk about how property taxes are high and people want a break, spending more money in bonds is not how you reduce property taxes. Regardless of
I,
what some of these local governments will tell you, property taxes are going to be higher than they would be otherwise.
I think that's a really important point, and you've articulated it well, and I've been trying to sound this alarm. We are in this environment right now where the governor and the legislature and us and people around the state are talking about property taxes. They're frustrated with their property tax burden. And we saw in the ITR Foundation poll where over 70% of Iowans favor a 2% spending limitation. Uh, Iowans are just frustrated with this. And yet sometimes I think that we don't always think about a bond election as just a straight up increase in property taxes. And like you said, it may in certain instances be appropriate. It's largely up to you. It's why we put it on the ballot, is so that you can render an opinion on it. But these are tax increases, and many of these jurisdictions will try to say that we're keeping your levy rate unchanged because maybe some other bond is falling off the rolls. But it's a tax cut avoided is still a tax increase. And so there's obviously some messaging in there that gets a little clever, but we got to think this is a $1.5 billion increase in property taxes in the state of Iowa. Full stop.
Yeah, that's what it is. And, and I'm not saying all the projects are bad, okay? Some of these communities, they need to build a new police station. They need to, add ADA requirements to their school facilities. They need HVAC supplies. Others want municipal swimming pools and community centers and new football stadiums and tracks. And so it really comes down to what is important and what do Iowans care about? We all want nice things, but do we have to have them in a time of I mean, no one's talking about it, but interest rates are not low right now. I know they're going
No.
down from where they were a year ago, but they're still not low. And that's
Well,
a
and
burden.
building costs are high too, just generally. Are there any $43 million recreation complexes on the ballot, Sarah?
There's none that large, no, but
Well,
I
we
will.
had multiple that all had the same price tag around the state. It was really strange.
Yeah,
But
I will say for
yeah,
scale though, I mean, Greenfield, they had that horrible tornado that went through last year. They're still rebuilding their community. And I don't want to speak for the people of Greenfield because I don't live there, but just from an outsider looking in, why are they bonding to build a new swimming pool right now? Like,
I
shouldn't you be rebuilding and trying to keep the tax burden low so your people can rebuild their homes? And I mean, if they were
right.
bonding to like fix the streets or their water treatment plant, I totally get it. The tornado did damage, but a swimming pool?
Yeah.
Is that a priority?
Well, that comes back to maybe we can take a minute here and take a detour here through what are the essential functions of government, right? And I know that you have it goes back to the local government summit this last summer and some of the things we heard there and that we've been talking about all along. Inside of these bonds, it sure looks like we see mission creep, where okay, is this thing maybe a swimming pool is an essential function of government.
I would
But
argue
is
it's
it the
not.
right
That's
yeah.
generous of
You
you.
know, like, it still doesn't mean you have to vote for it, even if it is, but I do you see that inside of maybe it's not even this year, but do you see that mission creep inside of the bonds?
I do. Because school districts in particular, they'll make agreements with cities. And so I've actually seen school districts bond to help build YMCA's because there's some joint
Mhm.
agreement there.
Yeah,
Daycares, a lot of time, let's bond to build a daycare and we're going to partner with someone else in the community. And so while historically public private partnerships have been good for the taxpayer in these situations with the debt burden and then the
yeah.
opportunity cost, it's not. And
Sure.
so what I mean by opportunity cost is that schools get sales tax revenue to help pay for infrastructure. And a lot of
Correct.
times they will bond and tie that money up. And so the only money they have left for infrastructure, again, falls on the property taxpayer. And that's what we see in Atlantic right now, actually. Atlantic has two bonds. They have a sales tax bond and they have a general obligation bond. Well, the
Hmm,
sales tax bond is going to build a multi purpose indoor athletic facility. And then they want to put on the property taxpayers classroom upgrades, HVAC, electrical, arguably things that
hmm.
fit within their core mission of educating students by having a classrooms and a school building, right? And so where's the priority there? Shouldn't the save dollars pay for the infrastructure needed to operate the core mission of educating students in the Atlantic School District, not tying them up building something that's nice, right? No one in the community saying we don't want these things, but if we have to look at the prioritization and the core mission, which is in this situation, educating children, to me, classrooms are more important than a multi purpose indoor practice facility for your sports teams.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of those age-old conversations is, how much should we be spending on high school and youth sports in our communities? And we're probably not going to resolve that today, but it does kind of shock people's sensibilities sometimes. You see the amount of money that's being put into new stadiums and turf and all of that. So, okay, what are the biggest ones? What are the eye-catching bond elections around the state right now? What are the big? I mean, we've talked on the show about the Des Moines Public School bond, but there are several others that are substantial.
Yeah. So, Ankeny, who has claimed that they will not raise your property taxes, spending another $130 million. That there's a whole discussion we can have about that. But they want to build athletic center, fine arts center, They want to do remodeling to their baseball and softball fields, build an innovation center. I'm still not sure what that exactly entails. So that's $130 million. Cedar Rapids had a bond fail last year at 220, so they're coming back. They cut $100 million off, so it's only 117 million, which is good, right? They listened to voters. They said that's too much money. We're going to come
It's
back with another proposal. I respect that.
at some point that maybe that's what we want is just right sizing some of these projects, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So coming back, we've got Iowa Western Community College. They asked for 55 million last year. They got really close. They're asking for the exact same thing this year. Voters already said no. During
Hmm.
during a presidential election year, they had lots of voter turnout and people said no. So they're gonna try again. Um, so anyway, so it's interesting. We have let's see, what's another one?
Dallas
Southeast.
County Courthouse, Sarah. Don't forget about the Dallas County
Okay.
Criminal Justice Building.
Dallas County Courthouse. I believe they're asking for a little bit more money this year than they did last year.
Right.
I'll have to go look at my thing. Yep, larger than the previous
Yeah.
attempt. So we will be coming out with an article soon. It's called Repeat Offenders, essentially talking about the bonds that have been offered within the last 2 years, and then who's coming back with the exact same proposal, asking for more money. Some are asking for less money. Just kind of analyzing that. But
Well,
go ahead.
Dallas County, obviously that's where I live. That's where world headquarters is here.
Yeah,
And as far as I was paying attention, that building failed. And not it wasn't a close outcome.
Dallas County
And
failed. You got 49% yes. Bonds in
so it
Iowa
takes 60 though,
60,
right?
right, yeah.
So and the only message that I could glean that the supervisors took away from that is that they just didn't talk about the project enough and not enough people knew about it. Well, I would submit that maybe people knew quite a bit about it and decided they didn't want it or didn't want it at that price tag. And furthermore on that project, and I think you see this somewhere too, it's the intersection with just the idea that these are all property tax increases. Let's not forget that Dallas County raised property taxes significantly 2 years ago and now are coming back around and asking for big new bond measures. Sometimes there needs to be some planning ahead on behalf of these communities that want to ask their voters to pay for a big new thing with a big new price tag, is that maybe you need to limit your spending in the years leading up to it. But sorry, editorial comment on the side.
Well, no, I think you have a good point there because Dallas Center Grimes School District also has a bond for $88 million on the ballot. So if you live in Dallas County and you live in Dallas Center Grimes School District, you could be getting a double whammy of seeing your debt service levy increase significantly on your property tax bill. And a lot of times these governments don't talk to each other. The cities don't say, hey, we've got this project. County, what are you doing? We want to make sure we don't throw the burden on taxpayers all in the same year. Um, maybe it's siloed on purpose. I don't know. Um,
It too often, Sarah. And okay, here's another editorial comment. I know you're trying to have your objective just look at what's going on over here, but it seems like all of it is an exercise to see how much money we can spend. What's the limit? What's the limit on what we can levy? What's the limit on what we can bond for? How much can we spend? And working backwards from that. And I think that's what really, really irritates me through all of this. And we can talk, yes, there are absolutely some important projects out there. You know what? Dallas County is going to need some more space. I completely understand that. Fastest growing county in the state. But it's all about just extracting more money from the taxpayer.
Well, and a lot of times what we see, I guess I'll editorialize a little bit. Southeast Polk is a great example. So they're coming out, they want a $51 million bond. By the way, the 51 is because 1 million of that is the cost to issue the bond. That's what they're paying the bond attorneys to just issue it. So again, taxpayers are financing that. They say we're keeping the rate the same. How did they come up with this magical number of 51 million? Maybe the projects really only cost 40 million or 35 million, but they're like, we can keep the rate the same if we can, get it up to 51, but we can't go to 55 because then we'd have to raise our rate. Like there is some very sophisticated math going on to make sure it fits. within
Right.
this. Same thing with Iowa Western. Why didn't they just drop it to 25 million and say we listen to taxpayers, but we really need this diesel mechanic school? I just don't see. You know what? I'm doing a blanket statement, and
Right.
maybe that's not fair.
It- but
Dubuque is
okay.
coming back, and they are trying to do some stuff in their schools, and they've significantly dropped their bond requests, and they only missed their original bond by 0.1% of voters.
Right.
And,
What I know specifically in Southeast Polk, and I think in Des Moines as well. Look, the Dallas County project is for a building. They need a building. That's what the building costs. Okay, whatever. Decide what you think about it. But Southeast Polk perhaps needs a new elementary school. Well, instead of bonding for the new elementary school, they bond for so much more because of their capacity.
Mhm.
Oh, well, we got more capacity than just for the building, so let's go dress it up with all these other things. Again, how much can we spend? How much can we get away with extracting from taxpayers? Instead of starting with fidelity and concern for the people that have to pay the bill and say, you know what, this stinks. We're just gonna have to ask for a bond. What's the least we can do and accomplish the core mission? And it seems far too rare that that's the conversation.
And Chris, I hear this all the time. Well, if I'm going to pay taxes, I want it to go to my school. It's benefiting the school. It's going to the right place. Or it's for the kids and they need it. And you know what? I want to stop that sympathy act right now.
Oh,
Clarinda,
I,
the Clarinda School District. Now, I'm
I
Southwest
know
Iowa.
I know you've made a lot of friends down there, Sarah.
Well, okay, so they tried to cram this spending project down their voters' throats 3 times in a row. Like the superintendent down there, I'll give him credit. He was not going to take no for an answer until he just had to. He had no choice. Well, you know what
Yeah.
they've done? They used their save dollars to get the core issues they needed addressed: HVAC, electrical, mechanical, all that kind of stuff. They got rid of the library upgrade. They got rid of the commons upgrade, the stuff that they didn't need, right?
Right.
They had a gap. They needed, I think, another $500,000 to get these core maintenance things done. They went and found a grant. Like, how wonderful is that? That the
Yeah.
taxpayers were able to say no 3 times in a row, and the school is still getting what it needs. It's still getting the HVAC because they're prioritizing save dollars like they're supposed to. And when they had a gap, instead of racing to taxpayers, they went and got a grant. That's not easy. It's easy to throw it on the ballot and say, taxpayers pay for this.
Yeah.
We need a new library. Um, Again, I'm not saying it's not a worthwhile investment, but somehow Clarinda didn't need all that extra stuff, right? If they had just come to voters with HVAC improvements, maybe that would have passed because it would have been a much smaller number, but they kept trying to throw in the extra stuff. And I see that time and time again. It's all this
Well,
little extra stuff.
I want to. Okay, now you got me going. This argument that you have to vote for the school bond because it's for the kids is just get out with that argument. Now, it look the bias that we spend a lot of money in education because we care about our yes, that singular idea is true. But give me a break that we have to authorize any spending idea, any amount of debt, any amount of increase in our spending simply because it is going towards education at some level. And it's not always just going to education. A lot of times it's going to a bunch of other stuff that's just managed by the local school district. But it was just, come on. And I think that Iowans are starting to see through that. Iowans want the best for their kids. Yes, we do. But I keep seeing this argument here locally, like it's for kids. So how can you hate kids? You don't like kids. You don't like education. You don't want to support debt. Give me a break. You and I can't be the only ones that see this.
It's interesting. I'm not from Iowa. I'm from North Carolina, and that's where I went to
You've been here
school.
long enough now. Just claim it.
Well, no. So I have a different perspective, right? When I was in school and they ran out of room, school districts in North Carolina have zero taxing authority. So they just put trailers out back. If you had a fast growing school district, there was like a sea of trailers out back. And somehow all those kids made it to Wake Forest and Duke and Chapel Hill, right? Like, it's not like the education suffered.
It
And so,
it's not unknown in Iowa that that's been the case. But continue.
anyway, I guess what I say is I went back for my high school reunion. My football field, it's exactly the same crappy field with the metal bleachers that was there in 2000, And so Iowa schools are on comparison with a lot of small universities in their facilities.
Oh,
Um,
Yeah, drive next time you're in town, take a drive past Waukee Northwest High School. I
Yeah, I
keep telling
did
you
it.
to do it. Okay, it
My
is a
I think
small
my
college campus.
my private university that I went to does not have as nice of buildings, and
Yeah,
I think that stadium is on comparison with my Division I, like, university's football
I
stadium.
it's beautiful and great. I'm glad that the kids that go there have that opportunity. Great, but it's nice. It's real nice, and there's a lot of districts in Iowa that wish they had those facilities.
So anyway, I guess I just get back to it, and it's like, if voters say, "Yes, we want this, we're willing to put this on, our property tax bill and pay on it for 20 years," there needs to be significant voter turnout. Having 10% turnout or 15% turnout for a 20-year property tax bill is not right, which is why the legislature moved bond elections to November. Um, I also think that these revenue bonds need to go to voters. The only reason why that SAVE bond is going to voters in Atlantic is because one of our supporters petitioned and got signatures to put it on the ballot. He forced the school district to do that. Same thing happened in Waterloo last year. They wanted to spend $165 million, and people were like, 5 people making that decision doesn't sound right. This should be a community discussion. And so I would like to see the legislature require revenue bonds. Maybe it needs to be above a certain threshold, right? Like $1 or $2 million or something. But still, revenue bonds should go to the people. They should know where that money's going, because now we do see a graying of the lines and the prioritization of where schools are spending their money. And schools are not the bad actor. I know we've been focusing on them. Cities make lots of bad decisions too, and they have revenue bonds that they can spend. And so it really needs to go across the board that voters need to be engaged, and we need to have
Yeah.
these discussions in our community.
I appreciate you pointing that out because that is true. And too often the school stuff is generally for something in usually inside their mission to educate students. It might be for athletic facilities or student commons, but it is inside of education. Whereas the city stuff often gets into the fluffy stuff
Mm-hmm.
where it's really out here like, oh, it's always about amenities. It just it just saying the word kind of starts getting me a little bit fired up. There's this mindset in cities and counties, they have to build these amenities, and that is their reason for being elected. Here in the metro, there've been you see these candidate surveys that the Des Moines Register collects, like, why are you running for office? What do you want to do? Every single candidate is talking about building more amenities. You know what? I want the candidate. It's like, hey, we got some nice stuff here. We're gonna honor the taxpayer for a little while. So that again, as an aside, uh, they're all spending decisions and it's all trade-offs, but there are things that are important to people that live in communities around the state other than building a new thing that they may or may not use. They're actually concerned about their bottom line.
Yeah, and I'd like your perspective on this from a legislator. People go to the legislature and the governor all the time. They say, my property taxes are so high. My property taxes are so high. And then they turn around and vote for local property tax increases and bonds. And it's like, as a legislator, like, what do you do? Because you
Yeah.
can't, you want the
I
citizen engagement, right? But at the same time, it's like, don't vote for a tax increase on one hand and then complain to me your taxes are too high on the other hand.
I think that the people who are the most vocal about their property tax burden are in fact showing up and voting no largely. It's not always. Sometimes they think it's a worthwhile thing. Those core folks, because what do we see in statewide? What do you think turnout will be in these local elections? This will be just ballpark it. 20%?
No, I think it's a little bit higher than that.
Is it? Okay, good.
Well, I would
So I
hope,
mean,
right? Maybe
and then in
30,
the general in the fall, you'll probably be in the 70s, somewhere
70.
in there.
Yeah. Iowa
Yeah,
has some of the highest turnouts
right.
nationwide, actually.
But there's a big population of Iowa voters that show up to vote in general elections only every 2 years. That's what they do. I think one of the things that has helped on the pro debt side of the equation is there's usually more resources. There's more organization on the side of getting this passed. I mean, obviously, you have the entire public school system administration that is, ostensibly not using property tax dollars to advocate for these referendum, but they're organized. And I'll take in most of these areas. We talked about how long, 45 days before the election, they have to put this on the ballot. they've known for a year or more they were putting this decision on the ballot. They've been talking about how to message it. They've been talking about where to go to get the resources to communicate, to advocate for it. And then they drop it at the last second, put on the ballot. A lot of times, the folks in the community don't know that's on the ballot until a month and a half before the election, and they're caught flat-footed, and they're trying to organize a campaign, and they're trying to get resources together, and they're spending most of that 6 weeks figuring out how to do print layout for a flyer that somebody's going to print on their laser printer in their basement. And it's just a lot more difficult for the voices that want to vote no.
It's even harder on these revenue bonds. They have 2 weeks to collect signatures to force it on the
Yeah.
ballot
Yeah.
after it's passed by the board. So if you're not paying attention, I mean, you have 14 days.
Yeah. That whole timeline has to be moved up. They look, if they have once a year to prepare to put this on the ballot, the preparation starts a year in advance, maybe more. There is no reason that we can't move that date up from 45 days to something much earlier, expand that window out for petitions, and just make it easier for people to have their voices heard, to organize in their communities.
You know, it really makes it easier for the auditors too. I mean, they're racing to get these city
Oh,
council candidates
hey,
and all this stuff. So having it earlier so they can just get their ballots organized. I mean, I sound like a sympathy, person of local
I
government, but auditors work hard. Like they do a lot of
yeah,
stuff.
it's a tough job. I got another one for you, and maybe I'll be a little critical of some of these auditors, though, is how about some of these local candidates that aren't even on the ballot this fall? They did the thing. They got their signatures, they took them in, they filed them, and now they're not on the ballot. And the only remedy that's offered to these folks, well, you have to run a write-in campaign. Give me a break. That is just flies in the face of everything we think about free and fair elections. It's just somebody, well, I messed up, so you don't get to be on the ballot. Well, I'll tell you what, if it's a challenge, then let's expand this window a little bit of the filing, and at least take this piece off their plate, move that back a little bit.
I think that's very reasonable. My husband's running for
Yep.
school board and they told him he only needed, so many signatures. And then the day of, they're like, "Oh, just kidding. You need 10 more."
Right.
So I'm at work and he's driving around with the kids in the back of the car just trying to get signatures because,
Yeah.
we're involved parents and we want to have a say in our kids' education. And it's like, why was this so last minute? Like, why didn't you know the number of signatures we needed?
And then
Anyway,
how would you feel if you complied with that and still didn't get on the ballot because somebody messed up? Like that can't be the right solution.
no, no,
So
I agree with you on that.
that is a complete detour. Okay. Um, well, so you've got the information about all this on the website, and sometime very soon you're going to have the repeat offender piece that'll be up for people. You've done the research, and now we're just getting publication of that ready to go, and that's
Yeah.
always really interesting to see who's how many of these bonds are just trying again.
And for our
Um,
members that follow this type of information, I've added some more data because I love information, and I feel like
yeah.
if you have more, it generates more good stuff. So I've included the percentage of how much the previous bond failed for, and then I've got a note section so
Oh,
you
good.
know, was it are they asking for more? Are they asking for less? Is it a different project? Is it the same project that's scaled back? So just kind of giving a little bit more analysis to help our readers understand what's going on. Because again, right, I get it. I got 3 kids. I'm busy. I don't have time to analyze all these bonds. Well, I mean, I do because it's my job. But if I didn't work in for
Yeah.
ITR, I wouldn't have time to do that. And so I want to give that to our members so they have a better informed information so they can make a good vote.
Good. All right. Well, this is good stuff. We will probably need to check in with you again before Election Day on some of this stuff because your work on this is ongoing. At least that's what you've led me to believe it is. No, just kidding. But no, it's great. And I tell you, we get a lot of feedback from folks around the state, from policymakers, from our members about how much they appreciate this data and this information. So really appreciate you putting it all together. And I know it's been a lot of work. So thank you for all that and in putting it in a way that folks can access it, make it usable, and being with us here today to talk about it. So anything else that the folks need to know, Sarah?
Um, just know that if you have a question about your bond, you guys can reach out to me. I've already had a couple people in different
Yeah.
communities reach out and just say, "Hey, I didn't know this was on the ballot. Thank you for letting me know. What can I do? How do I
Yeah.
fight back? How do I find out more information about it?" So, yeah, anyone's welcome to contact me and I can give you the information or tell you who to contact if I can't give you the answer.
Great. Great. Okay. Well, appreciate that. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, folks, for joining us. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to tell your friends. And with that, we will see you next time on ITR Live.